probably just a warning shot. Okay, you got it.
Shout out to Steph JK. We miss you.
Sergeant Cook.
Yes.
John Cook, whatever.
Yes.
Again, no victim that's now, unless it pops up in the hospital, probably just a warning shot, right?
That's what he said.
And after responding to Greasy Del Mar and Selma Avenue, and carefully searching the scene with your fellow officers, you found no physical evidence of a shooting whatsoever.
That's correct.
And of course, to be clear, that includes no evidence of a shell casing recovery, correct?
Correct. That includes that as well.
Say it twice.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to switch over if there's any redirect, but did you hear that ending line? You know, no physical evidence whatsoever of a shooting. And to underscore, to be clear, no shell casings. So.
Mr. Lewis, anything? Oh, Mr. Sullivan, anything? Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
You were asked questions, I believe, on Friday of Mr. Takina about your conversations with the DAs on this case. Is that something that customarily happens prior to your testifying?
Yes, it is in every case.
And this incident specifically happened approximately just over 3 years ago, correct?
Correct, yeah.
When you first received a subpoena related to this case, did you immediately know what incident you were even called to testify about?
Absolutely not, no.
Was it of assistance to you in refreshing your memory to be directed to your body worn video from this specific incident?
Absolutely, yes.
In his questioning on Friday and also today, Mr. Takapina asked you questions about searching for shell casings, I believe is how he phrased them. Are you familiar with the term shells, casings, cartridge cases, things like that?
Yes, sir.
What is your personal background, training, and experience as it relates to firearms?
Well, I have the training I received from the Los Angeles Police Department. I've also attended various trainings outside on my own time related to firearms training, different weapon systems, marksmanship, mostly related, that sort of thing.
In the course of that training that you're talking about, have you, can you even estimate how many rounds of ammunition you fired?
I cannot.
That's a lot.
Right.
Okay.
Over the years, yes.
Are you familiar with, just in general, with handguns, the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic pistol?
I am, yes.
And in very broad terms, what is the difference between those two types of guns?
Well, I think the biggest distinction would be that a revolver operates from a rotating cylinder where it has each individual chambers, usually typically 5 or 6 chambers, where each round, bullet, sits inside the individual chambers. And when the trigger is pressed to the rear, the cylinder rotates, hammer comes back, strikes the round, discharges the round. Then it continues to rotate. The difference between that and a semi-automatic pistol is all of those rounds are contained in a magazine, and it's magazine fed, so there is no rotating cylinder. Revolvers do not eject those casings the same way a semi-automatic weapon does. Every trigger press with a semi-automatic weapon, a shell casing ejects. And with a revolver, it stays within that chamber, continues to rotate until the weapon is empty, and then you manually eject those casings all at once.
So when you were looking for evidence at this scene specifically of cartridge cases being on the ground, that would be in the expectation that a semi-automatic pistol was used, correct?
Correct.
Because with a semi-automatic, those cartridge cases, once the bullet is fired, come out the side of the gun.
Correct, with every press of the trigger.
Okay. And is that true of all semi-automatic handguns? That's how they operate?
Yes.
Have you personally fired semi-automatic handguns?
Yes, I have.
When you fire, just in your own personal experience, when you fire a semi-automatic handgun, do those cartridge cases always come out in exactly the same trajectory, or do they kind of have a tendency to go in different directions?
The different directions.
Okay. And is it those discarded or used cartridge cases that you would have been looking for that night?
Those are the same ones we're talking about, yes.
Right. All right. just to put a fine point on that, when you searched that entire area, the street, the parking lot, you didn't find any cartridge cases anywhere.
No, I didn't.
And none of your 6 other partners who responded there with you observed or recovered any either, correct?
That's also correct.
You were asked questions, or I'm sorry, this, I think you were directed to the transcript, about page 3, lines 4 and 5, where one of your partners says that he checked every car in the lot and there's nothing, no hits, correct?
Correct.
In your experience responding to crime scenes throughout your entire career where a gun has been discharged, what are the types of damage that you would look for on a car, specifically related to a shooting call?
Sure, so flat tires, glass that's been spiderwebbed, right, or totally blown out, impacts to sides of doors or ricochets off of hoods. These are things that I'm just recalling from recent observations, those sorts of observations.
Are some of those observations easier to see than others?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you describe that for the jury?
Well, I think the best way to illustrate that is you have a white 4-door vehicle. It's easy to see the impact where the paint is missing and the metal is bent and distorted. And whereas if you have a vehicle with a darker colored paint job, you might miss it, right? You might not see it. It might blend in.
But also, even more generally, if a window is shattered, you're going to see a large shatter in that window, potentially.
Right, it's hard to miss.
And if a tire is flat, that's easier to see too, correct?
Yes, it is.
Versus, and I want you to assume for purposes of this that we're talking about the hole from a 9mm chambered round. If you observed a bullet hole in either plastic or metal of a car from a 9mm round, that would be a lot smaller, correct?
Comparatively speaking to other larger rounds, yes.
And even comparatively speaking to if the 9mm hit glass or a tire, correct?
Correct.
If a firearm was fired in a downward trajectory and struck the ground, would you expect the round would either ricochet up into the bottom of the car or potentially fragment into bullet fragments that would then strike the car?
I think both of those scenarios are possible.
Okay. Did you and your partners check the bottoms of cars?
No, we didn't.
In fact, to this point of any damage on the cars, were you or any of your partners, to your knowledge at that scene, familiar with the condition of any of those cars before you responded?
No, we weren't.
So you don't know if any of those cars already had any damage on them?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the jury's gonna. My personal stance, and I'm not a juror, but I'm just saying, if I had doubts about this starter gun theory, well, we've already heard and seen, and even Joe Tacopina underscored, this says Sig Sauer, this one says Luger. What does that say? It says Luger, right? So we're seeing all these pictures of evidence, all these different things that are pointing to a casing. So for the prosecution to now hint, well, do you have experience with revolvers? Do revolvers leave casing? No. To try to get the jury to fill in the blanks, well, it could have been a revolver. Well, the evidence you've already shown us, that either party's already shown us, doesn't point to a revolver. So, Peter Steele, you were on it. I agree. I think this seems desperate. And I don't know if the jury is going to fill in that blank and take that leap to say, you know what? It might have been a revolver. And, ASAP did it with a revolver, and that explains the lack of shell casings. This is a dangerous argument for the prosecution to make because it almost seems like a concession that, yeah, there actually were no shell casings in that hour-and-a-half time period before Relly went back and somehow found some. It seems like a concession. Not to be crime scene. Oh my God. Truly. Oh boy. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. How would Relly get the casings? I don't know. So, and maybe they have some expert that's going to tell us about some, this type of ammunition can actually be used without leaving a, like, I don't know. Maybe they've got some long-winded argument that they're going to present. I don't know. But they offered a sweet plea deal, so my guess, probably not.
Do you have it on a DVD or?
Yeah.
I can do it on the DVD.
Okay, right before Relly gets up, this is what we've got.
Yeah.
I don't want to fast forward and miss someone talk. So we'll speed it up.
Sergeant, I'm going to show you Defense A.
Oh, we're looking at that video.
We've been referring to
The tent video.
in the upper right-hand corner at 22:38:43. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Just to orient the jury as far as where we're looking at here, would you agree the street on the far right of the screen would be Selma, correct?
Correct. That's Selma that runs east to west.
And then we can just barely see a stop sign. And there's a kind of street directly in front of the officer who's shooting this video, correct? And that would be Vista Del Mar.
Correct. That's Vista Del Mar.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to the handicap parking stalls there. Would you agree that the one closest to the stop sign does not have a car parked in it?
Correct.
I'm going to start this from around the beginning.
Hey, Cal, did you hear me?
One second.
At least they didn't invert the video a la Karen Reed trial.
Hey,
My apologies, Sergeant. Marked on the transcript, but I'm not sure where that corresponds to on the video. One second.
have you looked at the corner of it? Somebody was trying this down or something? So, unless one pops up in the hospital, probably just a warning shot. Yeah, you got it, sir.
Sergeant, I can replay this section, but can you hear what sounds like a crowd of people in the background of this video? I'm going to play it starting at 22, 40, 41. I'll play it forward for a few seconds.
Okay.
Do you hear a number of people's voices in the background? Not officers.
Right, it's distantly, yes.
Okay. Was this a busy area of Hollywood?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Those noises that we hear, would that just kind of be people in the surrounding areas out on Saturday night?
Correct.
I don't have anything else.
Just sort let's go to
Cross.
22.